when Barack Obama's personal chef of 7 years disappears without warning, leaving only a cryptic note behind. The former president takes it upon himself to uncover the truth. What begins as a search for a missing employee quickly turns into something much deeper when Barack discovers his trusted chef has been hiding a secret life, one that involves a sick teenage boy, a long-abandoned responsibility, and a family connection that will shock everyone involved. As Barack follows the trail from Chicago to Detroit to New Orleans, he uncovers a story of redemption, sacrifice, and unexpected connections that will change multiple lives forever. The rising sun cast long shadows across the basketball court behind Barack Obama's sprawling Hyde Park mansion. At 6 o'clock in the morning, the former president was already awake. At 64 years old, Obama still kept to the strict schedule that had made him a two-term president. Barack stepped out of his private gym, towel around his neck, water bottle in hand. His morning workout was done. Now it was time for breakfast, the most important meal of the day according to Elijah Winters, his personal chef of 7 years. Elijah, Barack called out as he entered his massive kitchen. The room had been custom designed with gleaming countertops, professional-grade appliances, and enough space to prepare meals for 50 people. Usually by this time, Elijah would have music playing softly while the smell of turkey bacon and freshly cut fruit filled the air. But today, the kitchen was silent, no sizzling sounds, no wonderful smells, no Elijah. Barack checked his watch with a frown. This wasn't like Elijah. In 7 years, his chef had never been late. Not once. Maybe he overslept, Barack muttered to himself, though he didn't believe it. Elijah lived in the guest house on the property specifically so he could be available for early morning meal prep. Barack walked to the refrigerator, thinking maybe Elijah had left him a prepared meal. Nothing. That's when he noticed a small piece of paper on the marble island in the center of the kitchen. Barack picked it up, immediately recognizing Elijah's neat handwriting. "I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. Thank you for everything, Elijah." Barack read the note twice, not quite believing what he was seeing. This didn't make any sense. Just yesterday, Elijah had been planning the menu for a dinner party Barack was hosting that weekend for potential investors in his latest foundation initiative. "Everything okay for Saturday, Elijah?" Barack had asked. "Absolutely, Mr. President," Elijah had replied with his usual confident smile. "I'm planning that cedar plank salmon you like with the special rub. And for dessert, I've got something new I think you'll love." There had been no hint that anything was wrong, no warning that Elijah was unhappy or thinking of leaving. Barack pulled out his phone and dialed Elijah's number. It went straight to voicemail. "Elijah, it's Barack. I just found your note. Call me back. Whatever's going on, we can talk about it." He ended the call and tried Elijah's other number. Again, straight to voicemail. This wasn't just strange, it was concerning. Barack walked quickly through his house to the back door that led to the guest house. The morning air was cool against his skin as he crossed the perfectly maintained lawn. At the guest house, he knocked firmly on the door. "Elijah, you in there?" No answer. Barack used his key to unlock the door. Inside, everything was spotless. As always, Elijah kept his living space as clean and organized as he kept Barack's kitchen. But something was different. The closet door was open, revealing empty hangers. The bathroom shelves had been cleared of personal items. Elijah hadn't just left for the day, he had moved out. On the bedside table, Barack spotted something unusual, a business card for someone named Dr. Malcolm Reed at Chicago Medical Center. The specialty listed was oncology, cancer doctors. Barack's stomach tightened. Was Elijah sick? The sound of a car pulling up brought Barack back outside. It was Tanya Wilson, his personal assistant of 15 years, arriving for the day in her silver Lexus. "Morning, Mr. President," she called, then saw his expression. "What's wrong?" Barack handed her Elijah's note. Tanya's eyes widened as she read it. "Elijah quit? Just like that?" She looked as shocked as Barack felt. "That doesn't sound like him at all." "I know," Barack agreed, leading her back to the main house. "He's never even taken a sick day. Now he just disappears without explanation." Inside the kitchen, Barack showed Tanya the now empty refrigerator. "We were supposed to have that dinner party on Saturday. 20 people, including potential donors for the youth mentorship program." Tanya nodded, already typing on her phone. "I'll call that catering company we used last year for the charity event. They were good, and I'll start looking for a new chef right away." "No," Barack said firmly. "First, I want to find out what happened to Elijah." "You're worried about him," Tanya observed. wouldn't you be? 7 years. Tanya, 7 years of perfect meals, never a complaint, always professional. Then this? He held up the note again. Something's not right. Tanya set her phone down. I'll cancel your meetings today. All of them. The interview with PBS, the conference call with the foundation board, and the meeting with your publisher. She paused. The only thing I can't move is tomorrow's youth center opening. You need to be there to cut the ribbon. Barack nodded. The youth center was something he never neglected, no matter what else was happening. Fine, cancel everything else, then pull Elijah's file. I want to see his emergency contacts, previous addresses, anything that might help us figure out where he's gone. As Tanya left to make the calls, Barack sat at the kitchen island staring at the note. In his career, both in politics and afterward, Barack had developed an instinct for when something wasn't right. That instinct had rarely failed him, and right now, it was screaming at him. The Barack Obama that the public knew was thoughtful and measured. He analyzed problems from every angle before acting. Some people thought that made him too deliberate, but those closest to him knew there was another side to Barack, loyalty. When someone earned his trust, as Elijah had, Barack stood by them, and he wouldn't stop until he understood why his chef had vanished. Barack picked up his phone again and scrolled through recent photos. There was one from last week, a dinner party with some old cabinet members. In the background, barely visible in the kitchen doorway, was Elijah, watching the guests enjoy his food with a small smile of satisfaction. But looking at the photo now, Barack noticed something he hadn't seen before. Elijah looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes that the kitchen's dim lighting had hidden in person. Had Elijah been struggling with something? Was he sick? In trouble? And why hadn't he felt he could talk to Barack about it? I found his employment file, Tanya said, returning with a thin folder. There's not much here. His emergency contact is his sister, Nicole Winters. She lives in Detroit. Call her, Barack said. While Tanya made the call in the other room, Barack looked through Elijah's file. Born in New Orleans, trained at the Culinary Institute of America, worked at several high-end restaurants before Barack hired him. Nothing that explained his sudden departure. Tanya returned, shaking her head. Nicole's not answering. I left a message asking her to call us back right away. Barack stood up. Decision made. I'm going to Elijah's apartment in the city. He might have gone there. Want me to have Charles drive you? Tanya asked, referring to Barack's longtime security detail. No, I'll drive myself. Less attention that way. Despite being out of office for years, Barack Obama still couldn't go anywhere in Chicago without being recognized. Sometimes that was useful. Today, he needed to move quietly. As he grabbed his keys, Barack felt a determination that reminded him of critical moments in the Oval Office. When lives were at stake, nothing existed except the goal. Now his goal was finding Elijah. I'll call you if I learn anything, he told Tanya. Meanwhile, see what you can find out about Dr. Malcolm Reed at Chicago Medical Center, and check Elijah's recent credit card activity. I want to know where he's gone. As Barack drove away from his home, the question kept repeating in his mind. What could make a loyal employee of 7 years disappear without warning? The answer, he suspected, would surprise everyone, including himself. At Elijah's apartment building in Wicker Park, Barack nodded to the doorman. I'm here to see Elijah Winters. The doorman recognized him immediately. Mr. President. Of course, but I'm afraid Mr. Winters isn't in. I saw him leave early this morning with a suitcase. Seemed to be in quite a hurry. So Elijah had packed a bag and left. This was feeling less like a misunderstanding and more like a planned departure. Did he mention where he was going? Barack asked. No, sir. He just asked me to hold his mail until further notice. Barack thanked the doorman and returned to his car. He called Tanya. Elijah's not at his apartment. Doorman says he left with a suitcase and asked them to hold his mail. That's not our only problem, Tanya replied. I just got a call from Chef Devon at Blue Flame. Apparently, Elijah reached out to him last night asking if he knew of any chef positions outside of Chicago. Barack frowned. So he was planning to leave town. Did Devon mention where? He said Elijah asked specifically about New Orleans. Something about a culinary program for disadvantaged youth there. New Orleans, Elijah's hometown. Was he running back to his roots? But why? What about Dr. Reed, the oncologist? I made some calls, Tanya said. Dr. Reed is a pediatric oncologist at Chicago Medical Center. He specializes in leukemia treatment for teenage patients. Pediatric? Barack repeated. That doesn't make sense. Elijah doesn't have children. Not that we know of, Tanya pointed out. Barack considered this. How much did he really know about Elijah's personal life? They had a professional relationship that was friendly but always maintained certain boundaries. Elijah rarely talked about his family beyond occasional mentions of his sister in Detroit. There's something else, Tanya continued. I checked Elijah's credit card. He purchased a train ticket to New Orleans leaving at 11:30 this morning. Barack checked his watch. It was just past 9 a.m. I'm going to the train station. Barack, are you sure that's necessary? We can hire a new chef. I've already got 3 excellent candidates lined up. This isn't about finding a replacement, Barack said firmly. Something's wrong. I need to know what it is. As he drove toward Union Station, Barack's phone rang. It was his daughter Malia. Dad, I just got a text from Tanya about Elijah. That's crazy. He seemed fine when I was over for dinner last week. I know, Barack replied. It doesn't make sense. Did he ever say anything to you? Anything that might explain this? There was a pause on the line. Well, there was one thing, but it probably doesn't mean anything. What? Barack pressed. Last time I was over, I went to the kitchen to grab some water late at night. Elijah was still there, on his phone. He looked upset. When he saw me, he tried to act normal, but I could tell he'd been arguing with someone. Did you hear any of the conversation? No, he hung up when I walked in, but I asked if everything was okay, and he just said, family stuff, nothing to worry about. Family stuff. First the pediatric oncologist's card, now this. The pieces weren't fitting together yet, but Barack felt he was getting closer to understanding. Thanks, Malia, that helps. You're really going after him? Most people would just hire a new chef. Barack smiled slightly. Most people aren't me. At Union Station, Barack kept his head down, but it didn't help. A few people did double takes as he passed. One brave fan approached for an autograph, which Barack signed quickly before moving on to the ticket counter. Excuse me, he said to the agent. I need to find someone who's taking the 11:30 train to New Orleans. The agent looked up, and her eyes widened. Mr. President, we can't give out passenger information. Barack nodded. I understand, but this is important. My chef, Elijah Winters, left without notice this morning. I'm concerned about him. The agent hesitated. I really can't help you, sir. Privacy policies. Barack was about to press further when his phone rang. It was Charles, his head of security. Sir, we've got a situation. I've been checking Elijah's background like you asked. There's something you need to see. What is it? Not over the phone. How fast can you get to Chicago Medical Center? 20 minutes, Barack said, already heading back to his car. What's at the hospital? A 15-year-old boy named Jaden Williams. He's in the pediatric oncology ward under Dr. Reed's care. And Mr. President, he looks exactly like Elijah. Barack gripped his steering wheel tighter. I'm on my way. As he navigated through Chicago's morning traffic, Barack's mind raced. A teenage boy who looked like Elijah, under the care of the oncologist whose card Barack had found in Elijah's room? This couldn't be coincidence. Could Elijah have a son? In their 7 years working together, Elijah had never mentioned having children. But there was so much about his chef's personal life that Barack realized he didn't know. Chicago Medical Center was a massive complex of buildings in the heart of the city. Barack parked in the visitor's garage and made his way to the main entrance, where Charles was waiting. Charles Smith had been handling Barack's security for over 20 years. Tall, broad-shouldered, and observant, he'd protected Barack through 2 terms in the White House and beyond with equal vigilance. What have you found out? Barack asked as they walked through the lobby. Not much yet, Charles admitted. I have a contact in hospital administration who mentioned a teenager who's been getting special meals delivered, not hospital food, gourmet stuff, the kind of food Elijah makes. And this kid looks like him. My contact noticed the resemblance herself. She thought the man might be the boy's uncle or something. They took the elevator to the 6th floor, where the pediatric oncology unit was located. The walls were painted with cheerful murals of forests and cartoon animals, a stark contrast to the serious medical care happening behind closed doors. At the nurse's station, Charles introduced himself and Barack to the charge nurse, whose eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. President, what brings you to our ward today?" "I'm looking for information about a patient named Jaden Williams," Barack explained. "I believe my chef, Elijah Winters, has been visiting him." The nurse's expression became guarded. "I'm sorry, but I can't discuss patients with non-family members." "I understand," Barack said, "but Elijah disappeared this morning, and I'm concerned about both of them." Before the nurse could respond, a door opened down the hall, and a young doctor emerged. When he spotted Barack, he did a double take, then approached with an extended hand. "Mr. President, I'm Dr. Malcolm Reed. I couldn't help overhearing you're looking for information about Elijah Winters?" "Yes," Barack confirmed, shaking the doctor's hand. "He's my personal chef, and he left suddenly this morning. I found your business card in his quarters." Dr. Reed nodded slowly. "I see. Why don't we talk in my office?" Once the door closed behind them, Dr. Reed gestured for Barack and Charles to sit. "I'm afraid I can't tell you much about Jaden's medical condition due to privacy laws," the doctor began, "but I can confirm that Elijah Winters has been visiting him regularly for the past 3 months. He brings Jaden specially prepared meals that meet our nutritional guidelines while being much more appealing than hospital food." "Is Elijah related to Jaden?" Barack asked directly. Dr. Reed hesitated. "He never specifically said so. Jaden told us Elijah was a family friend. The boy's grandmother is his legal guardian." "Where are his parents?" "His mother passed away last year, cancer, unfortunately." "As for his father?" Dr. Reed shrugged. "Jaden says he's never met him." Barack absorbed this information. A boy without a father, now fighting cancer himself, and Elijah showing up with special meals, looking exactly like the boy. "Where is Jaden now?" Barack asked. "He was just taken down for some tests. He should be back in an hour or so." Dr. Reed studied Barack's face. "May I ask why you're so concerned about Elijah's whereabouts?" "He's worked for me for 7 years without a single problem," Barack explained. "This morning, he was just gone, left a note saying he couldn't do it anymore. No explanation." "That's not like him." Dr. Reed's expression softened. "I can tell you that Elijah cares deeply about Jaden. The boy lights up when Elijah visits. They watch basketball videos together for hours." He smiled slightly. "Jaden is a huge fan of yours, by the way. His room is covered with your books." Barack nodded thoughtfully. "When did Elijah first start visiting Jaden?" "Around 3 months ago. Jaden had been here about 9 months at that point. He was struggling with his treatments, not eating well. Then Elijah showed up one day with a special meal, and it made a tremendous difference." As they were leaving Dr. Reed's office, Barack checked his phone. There was a message from Tanya. Nicole Winters called back. Elijah's sister. She sounded nervous, didn't want to talk about Elijah, but she let slip that he's on his way to Detroit, not New Orleans. She said he bought the New Orleans ticket as a decoy, her words. Barack frowned. Why would Elijah want to create a false trail? What was he hiding from? At Chicago Medical Center, Charles met Barack returning from a call. "Jaden is back in his room," Charles reported. "Dr. Reed says we can visit for a few minutes if we come now." Dr. Reed met them outside Jaden's room. "He's having a good day today," the doctor said. "I told him Barack Obama wanted to meet him, and I thought he was going to jump out of bed, IVs and all." "Does he know Elijah is missing?" Barack asked. "No, I didn't mention that. I didn't want to upset him." Dr. Reed led them into the room. Jaden was sitting up in bed, his thin frame propped up by pillows. He was wearing a blue cap that covered his hairless head, a side effect of chemotherapy. His face was pale, but his eyes, the same deep brown as Elijah's, lit up when he saw Barack. "Are you real?" Jaden asked, his voice weak but excited. Barack smiled. "Last time I checked." "This is crazy," Jaden said, shaking his head in disbelief. "I have all your books. I've watched all your speeches. The 2004 convention, both inaugurations, legendary." Barack moved closer to the bed, noticing the walls were indeed covered with posters of him and other political figures. "You know your history," Barack remarked. "Sheffy says, Understanding history is important, knowing who came before you and what they accomplished. Jaden's face suddenly became worried. Is Chef E okay? Is that why you're here? Barack glanced at Dr. Reed, who nodded slightly, giving permission to ask about Elijah. Chef E? Barack repeated. You mean Elijah Winters? Yeah, that's what I call him. He makes me special food that doesn't taste like hospital food, and he tells me all these stories about working for you. What kind of stories? Barack asked, pulling up a chair beside the bed. About how you're super detail-oriented, even about breakfast. About the time he challenged him to make a healthier version of your favorite dessert, and when he did, you still ate 3 servings. Jaden laughed, then coughed. Barack smiled, remembering that challenge. Jaden, do you know where Elijah might have gone? He left suddenly this morning. The boy's face fell. He came to say goodbye last night. He said he had to go away for a while but promised he'd be back to cook for me again. Jaden hesitated. He seemed sad. When I asked what was wrong, he just said, sometimes adults have to make hard choices. Did he say where he was going? Jaden shook his head. But he left me this. He reached under his pillow and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook, his recipe book. He said I should practice making some of these when I get out of here. As Barack was about to leave, Jaden called out to him, Mr. President, there's something else. Chef E has a picture in his wallet. He showed me once. It's of my mom. Barack turned back. Your mom? Jaden nodded. I never knew my dad. Mom never talked about him. She died last year, right before I got sick. That's when I had to move to Chicago to live with my grandma. Chef E said he knew my mom a long time ago. The pieces were starting to fit together in Barack's mind. Elijah knew Jaden's mother. Elijah and Jaden looked alike. Elijah had been making secret visits and preparing special meals for the boy. Could Elijah be Jaden's father? A father who had been absent for 15 years, only to reappear when the boy's mother died and he became sick? Outside in the hallway, he asked Dr. Reed for a private word. I can't discuss Jaden's medical details, the doctor reminded him. I understand, Barack said, but I need to know if Elijah was involved in more than just bringing food. Was he participating in medical decisions? Dr. Reed considered the question. I can tell you that Mr. Winters showed an unusual level of interest in Jaden's case. He researched treatment options, nutrition plans, everything. The doctor hesitated. Even what? Barack pressed. He asked about being tested as a bone marrow donor. Dr. Reed finally said, Jaden may need a transplant if his current treatment doesn't achieve remission. And was Elijah a match? Barack asked. You know I can't share that information, Dr. Reed said firmly, but I will say this, finding a perfect match outside of immediate family is extremely rare. The implication was clear. If Elijah was being considered as a donor, there was likely a biological connection. The connection between Detroit, Chicago, and New Orleans now made sense. Elijah hadn't just disappeared, he was racing to save his son's life, a son he had abandoned 15 years ago, and somewhere in that story was a painful truth he had never been able to share. Barack knew what he had to do next. He would go to Detroit, find Elijah, and help him face whatever demons from his past were haunting him, because that's what you did for family, even the family you choose.